It's Wednesday, and as we always like to say, that means it's Joe Steckler Day. Joe is still recovering from his knee surgery, but in the meantime, myself and Kerry Fink are here to kind of hold down the fort. Good afternoon, Kerry, and I guess to hold down the fort, we're going to need some bungee cords and things. It's pretty windy out there.
I saw that today. We were out and about on the way over to the radio station and actually saw a house with a blue tarp on its roof, and it was flapping in the wind. So I guess it's that kind of day.
Yeah.
So it's a great Wednesday, though. It's other than the wind, it's a quite nice, pleasant day out there. And we're so privileged to have in the studio with us today none other than our education specialist, Kim Bernard from Helping Seniors. How are you today, Kim?
Good, Kerry. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us on Helping Seniors Radio. I always start the show by saying on behalf of Joe Steckler, our president and founder, and Kim Bernard, our education specialist, welcome to the show. But today you're here, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you again.
So I imagine as we go through COVID, and particularly, I guess one of the things we'll talk about today is that the CDC has a lot of guidelines. And if you're watching any kind of news, you're hearing a lot about, spikes and outbreaks and things like that. And so they're actually asking us to be exceptionally careful as we get into Thanksgiving time and all that. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of the tips and ideas for that, but also want to talk a little bit about maybe some of the work that you do with helping callers who come in on the Helping Seniors information line. And maybe even before we get into that, Kim, why don't you just take a moment and explain first of all, the information line and the kind of work that you do for Helping Seniors in taking the calls that come in.
So, yeah, Kerry, the phone calls that I get them from even out of state for loved ones who are living in Brevard County. I've even gotten them, out of county. I've gotten them from the West Coast. Everything from computer repair needs to handyman services to, my parent or my aunt doesn't want to go out, to get blood work done. And I do have someone who does, mobile phlebotomy. So that is a tremendous help because our elderly, they don't want to go out. Knowing that COVID virus is floating around, who wants to go out? So it's safe to have them actually have someone to come into the home as opposed to going out to, a different laboratory or medical facility, and they get a little bit nervous about getting sick to begin with because they are compromised to begin with. So that's just a small example of some of the things that do come through. It could be anything, any phone call. It could even be just someone who doesn't have a loved one to talk to. It could just be someone who says, "Hey, Kim, I was thinking about you. How are you today?"
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, those are always pleasant calls to get.
Absolutely. Yes, they are.
I was going to ask John Harper to jump in on this conversation, too, because, we've talked about this before. John and Joe Steckler have gone way, way back. I mean, preceding the Helping Seniors days. And John serves, not only is he the vice president of Helping Seniors of Brevard, but he has also been on the board with Joe since really the day he started it. In fact, it goes way back to even when Joe was setting up the Brevard Alzheimer's, and John was the guy that got Joe involved in being on radio and doing all of that. And John, you've seen the need for what Helping Seniors does over these years.
Well, Joe Steckler has had the vision, continues to have the vision for what this organization really needs and what it represents to Brevard County. Joe, many years ago, going back well over 10 years ago, saw the aging of the elder population in Brevard County to the point where it's at today. I don't have the statistics in front of me. Maybe, Kerry, you remember what some of those numbers are, but they're pretty impressive as far as the number of citizens in our county who are of an elder age. I'm talking about anybody 55 plus, 60 plus. And many times those people have no knowledge or understanding of where they can turn to for help. And Joe Steckler, again, with his vision and his wanting to establish an organization that would fill that need, bridge the gap between helplessness of people having nowhere to turn to where they have an organization to turn to. I think that has been making a big difference here in the county, and one of the trend setters perhaps in the nation as well.
Yeah, I think so. And to talk a little bit about the statistics, because I do like to share this, because this is always eye-opening for people if they haven't heard this before, that we live in a county, I think Joe has claimed that we're county number 24 in the United States in terms of percentage of seniors. But if you go by the traditional 65-plus definition, one in four of every person that you'll run into moving through Brevard County is going to be over 65. But if you want to expand it to use the AARP definition, which they say is age 50, and I know a lot of people get insulted when they get an AARP card on their 50th birthday. But I guess what they're really trying to do is suggest that if you're not thinking about aging when you turn 50, you ought to be. And so if we go by that definition, John and Kim, that's 1 out of 2 people in Brevard County is over the age of 50. So I always like to say, if you're in Brevard County, you either are a senior, love and care for a senior, or God willing, very soon you're going to become a senior. So everything that Joe tries to accomplish through helping seniors is so important, because it's all about getting information in your hands that you can use. And this is another one of my little diatribes about this, but when we're kids in school, the adults are always asking us, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your plan? Are you going to go to school? Are you going to get a job? What kind of job do you want to have? All those things. And then the next thing is, when we're in our working years, they're all saying, well, are you going to send your kids to college? Are you saving for your retirement? Are you going to buy a house? Or what's your financial plan? And all of a sudden, we may have spent our whole life, setting up for that. But then when we retire, Joe says, well, where's your aging plan? Where is the plan that you have for things that come along? And, John, we all live here on the Space Coast, which is also can be called sometimes the Hurricane Coast. I mean, here we are, we're November, and they're still tracking storms in 2020. But, we have a hurricane plan, right? They tell us, make a plan, what might happen if you have a hurricane coming close to you, get all these precautions in place. Well, I think that's what Joe is trying to tell us we have to do with this aging plan. And so I think one of the roles for helping seniors is, that's what we're here to do, is help people create that aging plan, hopefully in advance. But Kim, as you can attest, a lot of times it's when somebody didn't, that old thing, you failed to plan, then you've planned to fail or something like that. You get a lot of emergency calls too, don't you? I
do. In fact, I actually got one before I came here to the station this morning. I had a gentleman call me on behalf of his aunt. His aunt had raised him from a very young age, and all of a sudden now it's, I need to make some changes quickly. And what do I do? Who do I call? Do you have an attorney that I can call? But I only want an elder care attorney. So I will go ahead and go through and find the attorney that's closest to them, and they have it. So they're making the appointment today.
Yeah. And John, you've seen this over the years when people are confronting aging as they go along. It puts us into situations that we haven't really prepared for, and we don't really have the knowledge to necessarily on our own just know what to do next sometimes.
Well, Kerry, thinking back to what you just said about when we were in high school or in college and we had guidance counselors thinking they were directing us. I'm glad I didn't listen to mine.
Not either.
As far as I'm concerned, they had no more knowledge than I did. And they seemed like old people, but at the time they were probably 1 year older than me or something, just out of college, and trying to give advice. But it is important, Kerry. You raise a very good point as far as making a plan for your elder years, your senior years, twilight years, whatever you want to call it. And that's important. And so many people do not. And then, just as what Kim just mentioned, you get a 911 call of someone panicking and not knowing where to turn. And that kind of makes our point. That's what the organization then is all about.
No, you said it exactly correctly, because when we think about an aging plan, the idea is to say, well, these are some possibilities that I might run into. Hopefully I don't, but I'm gonna sort of have, hopefully the hurricane does not come here. But just because I hope it doesn't mean I'm not going to make sure I have the supplies on hand or keep the extra batteries for the radio and things like that. So, and I guess that's one of the things that we've talked about too, is one of the reasons that Helping Seniors exists is to help us stay ahead of the aging curve. So it's always good to know to go to somebody who has advice, who has maybe studied, there's a couple of things. Is the doctor lived through the possibly the thing that he's treating you for? Maybe not. But you know what? He studied that, and he confers with other professionals, and they've come about with the best, given this set of facts, this is going to be the best way to treat you in this particular case. Well, the same thing with aging. We're all on the job training for aging because that's just part of how life goes. But when you have the ability to call somebody who this is their business, they understand what the challenges are because they see the numbers of people that are moving through the system. And oftentimes I've been amazed, John Harper, how a small organization like Helping Seniors is able to make such a big impact, but it's mainly because Kim and Joe and the people connected know where to go to get a particular problem solved.
Well, Kerry, when we were younger and of the age in which we had children, many times we'd hear people say there is no instruction manual for raising children.
True.
and how true that is. And it's kind of on-the-job training. Well, we're kind of at the other end now of the spectrum, trying to take out some of the on-the-job training and to have somewhat of a path, a roadway, some benchmarks as far as what you can do to land that plane of aging, so to speak, on all its wheels, comfortable with the engines running, and making sure that you have a safe landing. That's what I think life is all about.
I have a friend who for years ran Waterman Village, which is a large senior complex over in Mount Dora, Florida. His name is Dale Lind, and he wrote a book called Empowered Possibilities. Now, this is a place that has everything from independent living to assisted living to actually skilled nursing. So they really run all the gamut. In fact, part of their appeal to people who might move to Waterman Village is that, once you're here, we can handle basically anything that comes up that you need along the way. So they have a very vibrant, downtown hub with restaurants and credit unions and all sorts of things. And it's available to everybody who lives there in that whole village. It's pretty fascinating. But I was talking to him. I said, you've done this your whole life. You've seen a lot of people come through it. And he said, what I've realized, he said, it's an odd thing to think about it. But he said, what I've come to realize in watching people age, he said, we were designed to live long and die short. So what he means by that is that we're always believing that, we're going to have some just prolonged situation that's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But he said what he's watched people. Remember, when he started out in his career, somebody who was 80 was old.
Yeah.
Today, 104, 105 is not unusual. I talk to people with assisted livings here in Brevard County, and they're telling me the average age could be 92 or 93. It's a whole different world than it was 20 years ago.
It sure is. It has changed rapidly and dramatically, but that's also why you need that roadmap in place to know where you're going. And many people around me often hear me say, you need to know and understand history so that you know where you're going in the future.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of the same thing with aging. You need to have that roadmap in place so that you can land successfully with a parachute or whatever you want to call it, and make sure that you've provided and planned for the future, because your future, unlike what you just said, Kerry, Fink, 80 used to be an old age. Mm-hmm. Well, now we're looking at 100 perhaps as
right.
a very real possibility of the average age of people living close to 100 or more. My mother lived to be 103.
See, there you go. And Kim, I was going to say, people don't really understand the caliber of the background that you have. So they think you're just a nice, friendly voice on the phone when they call the Helping Seniors info line, and you're quite capable. You have developed an amazing, in fact, throughout this whole COVID time, folks, Kim developed or actually I would say you probably amplified a system you already had in place where you knew where all the resources in the county were. Somebody would call up and say, where's a food bank? You even found I remember a food bank for pets,
yes.
people with pets.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, so Kim has really developed quite a system of go-tos for different situations that she's confronted. Joe established that, with the beginnings of Helping Seniors, got that whole thing off the ground. But Kim, you've really taken that to a whole nother level. But I want to talk a little bit, or I want to just have you share a little bit of your own background, because you didn't fall into this by accident. You started out working with a legal background and doing some things on that whole level, and then you've worked on social work and things like that. Talk a little bit about your background.
So basically, my background starts out in law. My father was a medical malpractice attorney, and I pretty much was working in law since I was in my teens. He would bring the cases home, and he would teach me. He taught me things. So the thought really was of me to go to law school, and I said, I don't want to become an attorney. It's just not for me. I mean, I enjoy it, yes. However, working with him during that time was a totally different time, obviously, but completely different as compared to now.
No, go ahead, Kim.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I was just kind of signaling, get a little bit closer to the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, so I mean, I've taken care of a lot of people in my life, family members, friends of family, etc. Do my own home care business, so I know what it's like. I know what people want, what they need. I have a very broad spectrum of experience. So when someone says they need an attorney for something specific, I know exactly what it is that they're talking about. So I can bring all of that to the table.
And not only that, I've seen that you have a sincere compassion for the callers that come in. They really, they really become almost your friends. And
they do.
And we hear how they sing your praises about, you were able to get them connected to the right thing at the right time. That makes a difference. And folks, a lot of times people will say they'll see us in the Senior Scene magazine. They'll listen to the radio program. They might see one of the TV programs on Space Coast Government TV that we do, because Joe has always been strong about we need to get the word out to seniors. So we always tell people there's three things Helping Seniors does. Number one, we operate the county's, and have now for 10 years, the county's Senior Information Helpline, which is a free call. We've helped thousands and thousands of families free of charge since this organization was founded, and getting them onto something that works in the right direction for them. But number two, Joe has always been committed. You can't pick up a newspaper without reading an article from Joe where he's advocating for the needs of seniors, whether it be the hometown news publication, Ebony News Today, Aldea Today. Joe is always featured in there. He's probably the county's greatest advocate for seniors, but then he's also put us full step forward with the radio shows, the TV shows, all this information that we do to get information in the hands of people, because we live in a county that's 72 miles north to south. And as you know, Kim and John, that it's difficult. People in Titusville don't always come down to Palm Bay, and people in Palm Bay don't routinely go up to Titusville to try to figure out what's going to help them best. So that's the second thing that we do is Helping Seniors. But the third thing we do, and Joe has always been an advocate for seniors, because we've had this conversation so many times. We live in a county that here, once again, we just voted that we need to keep in place that half-cent sales tax, because we're committed to making sure that kids have good schooling. So we're trying to do everything, it seems like, that we can to assist the under 18 generation to get a good start on life. But the question is, we have more 65 plus than we have under 18. And so who advocates for that? Well, that's Helping Seniors of Brevard.
And again, Kerry, that is why that is so important, all the things that you've just outlined, whereas many people often question the necessity for putting so much money into the school system. And I'm not saying that it's not important. I've said for many years, teachers are one of the most valuable resources in our nation and should be rewarded. So as far as pay and the time and effort that they put in, but not to get into a thing on education right now, we do need to support and put emphasis on the growing senior population, because it is real, it's here, and many times the seniors, as we said at the outset of the show, have no place to turn for facts and information, and where do they go?
Yeah, and the statistic that always boggles my mind is we're in the realm of the baby boomers all turning 65 now, and I think the statistic nationally is like every 7 seconds somebody is turning 65, and that continues for
Really?
years and years. So we're going to have more seniors, not less. We're living longer, thank God for that. But at the same time, that puts even more importance on planning for senior things. And maybe the third part that we have to think about when we're talking about seniors in Brevard County, I've heard Joe get on the phone and counsel somebody who is maybe living up north and they want to retire to Florida. And they said, well, how do I come down to Florida? How do I get my rent voucher? How do I get my housing voucher? How do I get my meal vouchers? How do I get all these things that I'm used to seeing available up here in north? And Joe has to explain, that doesn't happen in Florida. If you're trying to come down here on your Social Security check, you probably are better off to stay where you are and you've paid your taxes the whole life, because it's a different thing. And that's one of the things, this education part is so important. And so we're going to continue this conversation. We're reaching our halftime point, but we're going to talk some more with Kim Bernard, our education specialist, and John Harper, Vice President of Helping Seniors, as we come back.
Helping Seniors of Brevard. Joe Steckler normally here, but he is recovering from knee surgery, and we hope to have Joe Steckler back with us soon. But right now, filling in for Joe, myself, John Harper, and of course, Kerry Fink is with us. Hello again, Kerry.
Hey, John Harper, and we also have the very great privilege of having our very own education specialist from the Helping Seniors nonprofit organization, Kim Bernard, who's actually stepped out of the office to join us for today, so we can talk a little bit about things. We're going to, in this half hour, we're going to give you some tips from the CDC about staying safe over Thanksgiving, because as you know, we're all sitting here in COVID times and wanting to stay safe and do the right things. We've made it this far. And, it's interesting, guys, at least the people I'm talking to, I'm curious to hear what your own experience with this is, but I'm seeing people fall into two categories right now. They're either those who are convinced that there is no, it's almost like, it's over. And so they're not taking any precautions. And that's kind of scary, especially when we see, a spike in cases like that. But then I'm seeing it on the other side of this equation as well. People who are not making a trip when they need to. I talked to somebody literally on Sunday who was having some pretty significant chest pains. And I said, you need to go to the emergency room. And think about the logic. They didn't want to go because they were afraid they would get COVID. So, I'm saying, obviously, on one hand, you go, well, that doesn't make sense. If you think you're having some sort of a heart problem or an issue like that, you need to be where they can help you. But if the fear of getting COVID, that fear, it paralyzes you from doing everything. So the challenge seems to be to find a balance. What are you guys hearing?
That reminds me, Kerry Fink, years ago when the AIDS outbreak first occurred. And I remember in Detroit at WXYZ Talk Radio, we had one of the first individuals diagnosed with AIDS, and he was in our studios. And the majority of the staff, we had a staff of about 100 people at the radio station, and everybody left for fear, not everybody, but I'd say out of the 100, there were probably about 20 people left for fear that the AIDS at that time was going to be spread through the air conditioning system or something like that. And everybody was really scared about what could or could not develop. So we had to let people go if they wanted to go, or give them the afternoon off during the course of this interview. And I remember after the interview, not thinking much about it, I went to the men's room And right next to me was the guy being interviewed who had been on the air with AIDS. And
Wow.
I'm thinking, oh, my God, you know.
Well, and that's the thing. I think early on this was completely frightening because nobody really had any ramifications or understanding. But I assume at this point, most of us know, I certainly do, I would imagine you guys do, know people that have been diagnosed and have come successfully through it. I've also known people who have not come through it, so I understand the reality of it, and I think that's
it swings both ways. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it, Kerry. And I guess you might say that old cliche of it has no rhyme or reason. And then I've seen people. I saw a report last night of a young lady. She was, I think, about 50, maybe even a little younger than that. Maybe it was 45. And she died not of the virus, simply because she went to the hospital, and the hospital was so overwhelmed with COVID-19 patients and everything going on that they couldn't give her the proper attention to her heart attack. And she died from the effects of the heart attack and not of the virus. But the hospital system is really being taxed. This is real, and nothing that is being made up or anything like that. And it seems to me that one of the things people can do is the way we can help defeat this enemy is simply wear the mask.
Yeah, I was going to say that. One of the things that I keep reading over and over, and Kim, tell me if you don't hear the same thing amongst the folks that you talk to on a day in, day out basis. I'm talking about providers. They've been able to keep seniors safe, right?
Oh, absolutely. I can definitely confirm that. I mean, even just my own mother, when we go in for a doctor's appointment, there's nobody in the waiting room. Absolutely nobody. So it's perfect, actually. I mean, there's no wait.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things is what I have heard universally is that if we will do the right things, this does not have to spread. And the challenge is, will we do the right thing? So one of the things I pulled up, this is on the CDC.gov website. And by the way, despite all the rhetoric on all sides of what, people have political opinions, aspirations, and all kinds of things. But you know what? At the end of the day, the CDC.gov site has not really changed its recommendation since the very first day. They say, so this is like the headline points. You can see it. We actually put the link up on the Helping Seniors website too. So you can go and pull down in greater detail. But listen to this and tell me if you think this has changed. Everyone can make Thanksgiving safer. Number one, John Harper just said it, wear a mask. And they actually go into some detail about, it should have 2 or more layers, wear the mask over your nose and mouth, secure it under your chin, make sure it fits snugly against the side of your face, things like that. The number 2 rule, stay at least 6 feet away from others who do not live with you. So again, it's that social distancing thing. Number 3, wash your hands. They've taught us that from the very beginning, saying wash often with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If you're unable to wash, keep that hand sanitizer with you. But what I think is probably helpful, particularly this time of year, because none of us have ever lived through anything like this for the holiday season, and Thanksgiving is really kind of that kickoff, right? Because then everything starts to flow into December with Christmas, Hanukkah, New Year's, everything that goes on during the month of December. Everybody wants to get festive. Probably, particularly this year, we're looking for a sense of normalcy, but we still got to be especially careful about these gatherings, right, John?
Absolutely, Kerry, Fink. And I notice many times Jim Voltro and myself, we will discuss if we're out and about in various stores. He goes one way, I go another. And for example, I was in Publix the other night, and I noticed that in my own little survey, about 50% of the shoppers in Publix were wearing masks, and obviously 50% were not. And I asked the cashier, I said, does Publix still have that rule where you can't come in and buy groceries unless you have a mask on. And she said, well, the rule kind of stands, but nobody's enforcing it.
Right.
And I felt that when Publix, Walmart, and some of the other major retailers started enforcing the wearing of the mask, or you don't get any service, you can't come in the store, I found that's when the curve of the virus outbreak started to go down, and then people started getting lax, and therefore we're seeing record numbers right now.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, I'm not smart enough to know how inevitable all that was anyway, but when I just go back and I read the CDC.gov site, and you take all the politicization and somebody says you got to do it this way and somebody else says do it that way, and no matter what you think, the basic rules haven't changed. Wear a mask, wash your hands, social distance. And so what they're talking about in particular for attending a gathering, they're actually saying here are some tips. Bring your own food, drinks, plates, cups, and utensils. Wear a mask, and safely store your mask while eating and drinking. So I'm sure you guys have seen this too. A lot of people making big mask mistakes. You put on the mask, then you take it off and you set it down on a table, and then you pick it up and put it back on your face. We have to think about these things. It says avoid going in and out of the areas where food is being prepared or handled, such as the kitchen, and use single-use options like salad dressing or condiment packets, and disposable items like food containers, plates, and utensils. And then they're talking, the site goes on. It has sections about hosting a Thanksgiving gathering. So the way to do it safely, because you guys remember a couple of weeks back, we had Jennifer Helen with Seniors Helping Seniors, and she was telling us that in her family, they're having to do Thanksgiving different this year because I guess there's like a 92, 93-year-old aunt, and they want to be very, very careful that they don't inadvertently create a problem. So they're going to do things with like FaceTime or things like that, but they're going to have to get creative on how we do Thanksgiving. The same site, by the way, has some great tips about Thanksgiving travel. So if you are going to travel, there's some tips there. They're talking about ways to host a virtual Thanksgiving meal with friends and family. At least we have social media and things that we can do these FaceTimes or Zoom calls or things and stay together. But it really does seem like to curb it, we ought to stick with the basic precautions, right?
I just heard this morning, as a matter of fact, that the Zoom company is waiving all of their fees involved to being online with Zoom on Thanksgiving Day. Normally, as some people may know, you're allowed to get 45 minutes free, and then after that there is a fee. Well, on Thanksgiving Day and Thanksgiving night, it's going to be totally free. You can stay on Zoom for, I guess, 24 hours if you wanted to.
And that's great, because I don't know, you guys are all old enough to remember this probably, but I remember when I was a kid, we would call grandmother and grandfather on Thanksgiving Day. And we all had to line up next to the phone because long distance was very expensive,
yes.
right? And so we all got like 60 seconds apiece to talk to grandma and grandpa on Thanksgiving Day. So if you want to at least put it in perspective, I think we're in pretty good shape as we go into Thanksgiving 2020.
Well, the Zoom company, they're no fools. They've kind of figured it out. Get people hooked on the product on Thanksgiving Day, make them friends, and create all that goodwill. And they're going to come back, and they'll be able to make a lot more money.
Yeah, and all of this discussion about how we've been able to use technology. In fact, we did a radio show a couple of weeks back where we talked about technology and how that has made a way to kind of not only cope with, but at least get through some of the challenges that COVID otherwise would present. I know, Kim, you and I have done a number of Helping Seniors updates where we basically were able to do a Zoom call and then put it out on social media so people could get the latest and greatest information as you were discovering it. In fact, like even during the break, you were finding new things about, because we had the conversation about places that you could get help with your pet food and things like that, and food banks and things like that. And I think you even found another one even during the mid-show break.
Oh, absolutely. The Space Coast Kibble Kitchen, located on 720 North Drive in Melbourne. Their telephone number is 321-220-7590. Again, that number is 321-220-7590.
That's called the Kibble Kitchen?
No, it's a Space Coast Kibble Kitchen.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and they actually have 2 locations, one down in Sebastian and one in Melbourne.
And I hear the cat
Yeah,
in the background.
There you go.
But you know what's interesting about this? We've done a lot of shows here recently, both on TV and Helping Seniors Updates, where people who are in the business of looking after seniors, their concern is a little bit less for the medical side because we are able to keep seniors safe when we do all the right things. But they are a little bit more concerned about the isolation and the social side because that's harder to work with. And I guess for many people, when they call you and say, well, I can't get out, how do I feed Fido? I mean, that must be like a major point of stress for a lot of people.
It is, definitely, and it's not just the feeding, it's also the veterinary care too. So of course, they have to eat and they need veterinary care. Unfortunately, I'll be honest, I don't know of any mobile veterinarians in the area, with the exception of one that does only euthanasia. They do not provide vaccinations coming to the home, etc. Traveling veterinarians, I think, is something that's needed in Brevard County.
Well, you're getting closer to it, on the medical
Right.
front for people. So it's got to eventually follow through because now we have telehealth. I know. For example, we've talked with Dr. Kevin Kilday, who's on the holistic side of things, and he's really built up his practice through people doing basically Zoom calls, and he can consult with them that way. Another example that comes to mind of a real innovation that's such a blessing at this time is Paradise Mobile Labs and what Heather Polonis does there.
Yes, absolutely. Doing any mobile phlebotomy. She's not just doing that. She's also taking urine samples and stool samples to the hospital. So all you have to do is write a check to her for $25, and she takes the samples right to the hospital. And that way then you're not having to leave your home, and you're not having to even go to the hospital or go to the lab.
Yeah, and so particularly for seniors who oftentimes have to coordinate transportation and try to get a ride or figure that part out, this gives them a way to do that. So, as the other kind of area I wanted us to talk into,
Kerry, before we get into that, Jim Votro also had a list of some other internet services that provide
absolutely
FaceTime or whatever.
Well, you've got FaceTime with Apple. If you got an iPhone, you can kind of pass it around the room. That's a real easy thing on a phone call. In addition to that, they've got Microsoft Teams, they've got Google Meeting, they've got all kinds of services out there, and you don't have to be using Zoom. You can use any numbers of these FaceTime situations. Like even Samsung, for example, has a similar thing that will interact with a lot of the iPhone things, and really, it's a great situation for everybody to actually enjoy Thanksgiving in a safe and happy way, especially if you can't travel or especially if you're at high risk.
Yeah, wasn't there in the old days, the long-distance companies, one of them had a slogan like the next best thing to being there? I mean, so if we do this safely, this is it's really fantastic because, even when Joe has been going through the rehab and things that he's been doing connected to his knee, I get a call from him and he goes, Kerry, you got your iPhone with you? Yeah. He goes, all right. He said, call me back. Let's do a FaceTime. And so it was great because it was the first time that I'd had a chance to physically see Joe since he was going through the surgery and all that. He looked great. He goes, well, I need to shave. But other than that, I said, you look great. And so he said, he said, actually, I'm feeling better. So that was all positive. But, they tell us a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so by having these tools like Jim Votro is talking about, it's really a great thing that at least we have that to work with during this holiday season.
Who would have ever thought the beginning of this year, I don't know about you guys, but I had never heard of Zoom. And back in January, what is a Zoom? And I remember, I think in February, watching a report on one early Sunday morning on CBS, and they talked about making Zoom calls. And I thought, well, that's a kind of a novel idea, an interesting approach, and it's become a household name almost with that and some of the others that Jim just mentioned as well. So really high-tech ingenuity has really helped us out during this war with the pandemic crisis.
Yeah, and that's what I got to say. I love this about the spirit of America because you throw stuff at us, we're going to figure a way through it. I mean, we can have differences of opinions about a lot of stuff, but we will get the right thing done when it's all said and done. And that is really pretty amazing when you think about it from the standpoint of what's been able to happen in this year. So we're really looking forward to the fact that now they're telling us vaccines are around the corner. So I'm really hopeful that's moving in the right direction. The other thing that seems to be in the right direction is there are a number of people who unfortunately are having to be hospitalized, but it really does seem like they're getting better about the therapeutics and the treatments, so that at least everybody has a much better shot of fighting their way through if they do happen to get into it.
It does seem like there's a better understanding of how to handle this. I know the respiration therapists have really been very successful in helping to treat the virus by basically flooding the body with oxygen.
Right.
And that has made a big difference. So that's helping and moving things in the right direction. But still, all the reports we're seeing this week alone since Sunday indicates that this is not the time to relax and let up. Just the contrary. It's the time to ensure that we're doing the right things to stay safe. And it always amazes me, as I mentioned a moment ago, about going into a store, and I can't believe the number of people, and elderly people, there are two extremes, either elderly or young,
right,
that are not wearing the mask. And that's simply amazing. Jim, have you seen that as well?
I have as well, John. And one of the things that, it really depends on the store. Like up at the Suntree Publix, everybody's wearing masks. When they go in and come out, if they don't have one, they can get one. And in other stores, like I was in Sam's recently, and Sam's, I saw most of the people were wearing masks except 2 or 3 of them. It says right there, you're not supposed to enter without a mask, but 2 or 3 people are just doing it. Now, I'm not the mask police, okay,
Right.
and nobody is, but, that really bothers me because, again, we're old and we're basically at higher risk.
Yeah, and my viewpoint is, guys, we've made it this far. They told us originally, right? It was like 2 weeks, stop the spread.
Yeah.
And here we are more than half a year later, and they're still telling us like we may not have rounded the bend. So whatever the case is, and especially knowing that what the CDC guidelines are, and just watching how the people who work with seniors have been able to keep everybody safe, it really seems simple enough to stay safe if we just take all those right steps. So make sure you visit helpingseniors@brevard.org. Check that information, the link to the CDC site. You'll find it at helpingseniors.updates.com. You'll see it right there if you check out the latest edition of Helping Seniors Updates. And Kim, as we get into the closing moments of the show, I want to talk a little bit about the Senior Scene magazine. And the people, if you're familiar, many people are, because there's like 14,000 copies that go out each month. And as you know, for years and years now, the Helping Seniors newsletter has been in the center of that magazine. We call it the Yellow Pages. It's kind of a center section. You can actually pull it out if you'd like and just read it as a standalone, but it's right there bound in your free copy. You can also get it at seniorscenemag.com. You can read it there. And then we post, of course, the Helping Seniors newsletter on our own website at helpingseniors@brevard.org. But for somebody that may not be familiar, we've just all been working on the December edition, which will come out, oddly enough, the 1st of December. but let's share some of the things that you're finding in the November edition, which are really timely and on point, I think.
So we have some great articles in here, Kerry. We have an article about seniors facing boredom and isolation. And also, of course, and you come to my corner, also known as Kim's Corner. And I basically talk about things that are coming into the office as far as different types of phone calls, events that have taken place, such as fundraisers. And also the next one we have here is, so why shouldn't you do dental implants? And that's featured by Dr. Lee Sheldon of Solid Bite. And also we have National Hospice Month.
I did not know this was that month.
Yes, it is. So, and then we also have family caregivers at holiday time. That's presented by Jennifer Helen at Seniors, Helping Seniors. And also we have another article presented by Dr. Kevin Kilday of the Holistic Health Center. The air you breathe affects getting COVID or not.
Yeah, that was pretty. We did a radio show on that particular topic, and that's what I say. There's so many good. There's so many good things to consider in there. There's an article from August Velton, who is he's a retirement financial expert. And why that's important is there's two different kinds of financial planners, right? There's a person while you're earning money and you're talking about trying to get ready for retirement. But then, as August explains, and he does an amazing job, the TV shows that we've done together with August are worth hunting down on the Helping Seniors website or our YouTube page, Helping Seniors of Brevard, because the strategy shifts when you go into retirement mode. And so he has a lot of tips about Social Security. Here he's talking about asset-based long-term care in the November. There's just a bunch of great articles in there, Kim.
Oh, there is, absolutely. Even Health Impact of Loneliness, Part 1 by Kelly McDavid Aralis from Home Healthcare Resources. And also, let's not forget, Let's Get Ready to Travel, Helping Seniors Travel Club with Chris and Betty.
Oh, that's great. I love those guys. And guess what? We're just about at the end of the show, but I wanted to give you one quick update. The Helping Seniors Foundation Cruise is moving to May from 2021, just again out of the safety suggestions from and recommendations from CDC. So we're going to have more on that next week. Want to thank you, Kim, and thank you, John, for making this a great Helping Seniors radio show today. And we will see you this time next week right here on 90.3 FM WEJF.
Thank you, Kerry, and looking forward to it. As always, every Wednesday afternoon, 12 noon to 1 o'clock, it's Helping Seniors of Brevard.